Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Samiksha and today I'm really excited to be filming this video because it's been such a long time, and today's video is gonna be a little bit different because I'm going to review a book called Pachinko, but I'm not going to tell you the meaning of the book's title Pachinko right now because I want you to watch whole video, and I'm going to tell you what Pachinko is only towards the end of the video. I've always felt a bit uncomfortable when it comes to reviewing really good books because I'm always worried that my words, my expression won't quite do them justice. But today, let's give it a shot and let's walk you through this book called Pachinko. So, this book takes us through generations, and it's the very first book that I've read that explores the dynamics between Korea and Japan. So this book is a historical fiction masterpiece written by Min Jin Lee. She is a Korean American author who is really talented. So for me, what makes Pachinko best is how it tells the personal stories so effortlessly into the broader political context of Japan and Korea. When I first picked up this book, I was pleasantly surprised because it's written in such a simple way. It's written in super easy way, and it's incredibly easy to read. What I really liked about this book is how it managed to tell the stories of different characters in a nuanced way, and was able to cover so many different aspects of life in a war-torn and colonized country without losing the reader's attention. So if you know what I mean, it's like it keeps you hooked from start to finish. This book doesn't avoid the complex topics. It really looks closely at the issues of identity, which is a big deal for many people. It also talks about the challenges women faced when Korea was colonized by Japan. So this book explores what life is like for immigrants. It's not just about getting by, it's also about trying to find a meaning and purpose in a world that can sometimes feel crazy and unforgiving. I've also read another book called The Island of the Missing Tree, which is by Alif Shafak. So it's also quite similar to Pachinko in some ways because it has also touched on stuff like dealing with multiple identities when you migrate to another country and feeling like you don't quite fit in and you're always searching for who you are. But Pachinko is set on the 20th century, unlike The Island of the Missing Tree. So it's also one of the great book, and it is interesting because it's also told from the perspective of a fig tree, which is kind of unique. But now let's stay focused on Pachinko. So when I first picked up this book, the cashier told me it was a great choice, and I have to say she was absolutely right. So this book has been quite the journey. I really like the first line of the book. History has failed us, but no matter. So the story of Pachinko takes place in the 20th century and follows a Korean family for 4 generations for 80 years. During that time when Japan colonized Korea, the story starts with Youngji, a young woman who marries Hansu because her family can't afford to take care of her and her daughters. Life is tough in a small boarding house for her by the sea, where making money is a daily struggle for them. Then the story focuses on Sunja. Sunja is a daughter. She's the main characters. Later on, she gets pregnant unexpectedly by a married man, and instead she marries someone else and moves to Japan, hoping for a better life. But Japan is not as dreamy as it thought. Shanja has two sons, Noah and Majasu, and their story spans 80 years, covering the ups and downs of life. Overall, Pachinko shows us the lives of regular people in a country dealing with poverty after war. So it's a story of resilience and how history and society shape our lives. As I was going through this book, what really grabbed my attention was how women were dealing with their situations during that period of time. So it was really eye-opening for me to see how deeply ingrained patriarchy was in Korean and Japanese societies. And this book clearly brings out themes like patriarchy, imperialism, the struggle for survival, and the search for meaning in life, especially when it comes to the lives of women. And I was really connected with the women characters of this book, and it made me think about various aspects of how the world used to be quite traditional in many ways. I was not quite familiar with Korean and Japanese history, and especially about women's struggles. I'd often find myself going down a Google rabbit hole looking up stuff about Korean history, feminism history. So reading this book also made me reflect on the past and present in Korea, how things have changed and how it's becoming a booming economy these days. But at the same time, it's clear that Korean girls and women still encounter some sorts of challenges in their everyday lives. Pachinko also deeply portrays inequalities. I mean, it's really heartbreaking when you see Shunja's mother, who can't even speak about against her own marriage that she disagrees with, and Sanja herself feels fear and humiliation just because she's pregnant. Then there's this part where her brother-in-law won't later work to become financially stable. It's like she's constantly struggling in her life, constantly living in the shadow of male authority throughout her life. So this is the pattern that keeps repeating throughout her life and throughout the book. So first she's expected to be obedient to her father, then it's her husband after marriage, and even in her old age she's still bound by the expectations of her two sons. But what's really sad is that despite all this, life does not necessarily improve for women. All these inequalities are like a heavy weight that women carry throughout their lives, and the book does an amazing job of making you actually feel that. You'll also notice how the female characters had to make so many sacrifices just to survive in a world filled with rampant sexism, especially during those times. Take Sunja, for instance, when she refused to marry a man who disrespected her. She was really fighting for her own self-worth, but it came at a cost, bringing her a lot of shame and disgrace. At the same time, she also challenged the societal norms by working in a labor force, making kimchi and selling it in the open market, despite her brother-in-law not allowing her. This was a direct contradictions to the idea that women were supposed to stay confined in their homes. So that is the progressive thing, a picture of how women can rise and thrive even in the toughest of situations. So Sanja's character is a prime example of this. Despite all the hurdles and pressures, she never gives in. When something feels impossible, her inner strength just kicks in, and she refuses to do anything that makes her feel powerless. She steps out of the traditional confines of her home and takes on work outside, earning her own way. To realize something, it's not only the story of Korean and Japanese history, it's a story that should resonate with people who have lived through the turmoil of war anywhere in the world. It's about people fighting to hold on to their identity, fighting for survival, and striving for a better life. So if you think about it, these struggles were happening everywhere a century ago when there were war and when there were poverty. Storytelling of this book Pachinko is honest and direct without any sugarcoating. So what is Pachinko, you might be wondering. So when I first came across this book, I literally had to search in the Google to figure out its meaning. So it's a gambling game originated in Japan. So Pachinko machine, it's a machine. It was built during the 20th century in Japan. So this game is usually played in parlors. The player insert coins in the machine, and in return they would get some metal balls. So they can use that metal balls in different holes. So some of them enable the players to win more balls. So more ball means more prizes, more gifts. So more balls is beneficial for the player. But in the novel I started to see Pachinko is more than just a game. It becomes a metaphor for so much that happens in life. The characters in the story take a chance and Pachinko and move forward with hope, even when they're having hard times. And I believe we all do that in our own lives too, right? We move forward day in and day out, hoping that things will get better, that life will become a little bit less stressful. We chase after our dreams, take chances, and sometimes even regret the decisions we make. But no matter what, we have to face it, whatever comes our way. So that is the essence of Pachinko. So Pachinko is the reflections of the resilience and determinations we all carry within us in our life.